What's going on, my G's? Benny Macaulay here, and today I'm going to be doing a mix breakdown for this record I just finished mixing and mastering. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through my mixing and mastering process so that hopefully you can learn one or two things that will help you mix better. And I'm also going to talk about some very important topics that I've been getting questions on for a minute. Talk about EQs, dynamic EQs, compressors, multipressors, what the differences are, and maybe when to use them. And also give you a quick walkthrough of how I stack up my vocal chain. Now, before we get started, let's talk about gain staging. This is something that when I learned about 5 years ago, changed my mixing forever. It's very important to understand what gain staging does and what gain staging is, and most importantly, how to gain stage in Logic Pro X. All right, so let's talk about it real quick. So basically, gain staging is making sure your input signal is leveled properly before any processing. I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a minute. So it just means you don't have your input signal too loud to avoid digital distortion, because digital distortion is annoying, and also making sure the signal is not too low to the point where your processing is not receiving enough input signal to work optimally. So let me show you what signals will look like before gain staging and what it look like after gain staging. And gain staging is very important for everything from VSTs to samples, vocals, whatever it is you're working on. For example, this is a VST and I'm just going to play any sound. Yeah, and you can tell that this is clipping, right? Normally, your normal intuition is to let me just turn the level down, right? I'm good. And let's see. So now you're probably thinking, oh yeah, it's no longer clipping, so we're good. But there's something called pre-fader metering. And when you engage your pre-fader meter, that's how you know what the actual level of your signal is before processing. That's why it's pre-fader, pre-processing. By default, Logic shows you your post-fader, shows you the levels post-processed, basically. So to turn on the pre-fader in Logic is very simple. You go over to the display mode, you click, you go to customize control bar, and then you go select pre-fader metering. Personally, I'm always selecting pre-fader metering because I like to make sure my gain staging is right before I do anything when it comes to mixing and mastering. And then I just leave it at my pre-fader because I don't watch the faders when I mix. I just listen, okay? So let's see what the pre-fader meter is going to show us. Remember, when we dropped the post-fader, the level of the VST actually went down. But now, with the pre-fader on, let's just see what happens. You can see that we are still clipping. I'm going to reduce the volume while I'm playing this sound, and you will see that the fader doesn't control the level of the signal at all whatsoever. Right, you can see we're at 0, but our pre-fader is still showing us that, you know what, our signal is clipping. And let me take it back to Unity. The same thing. So that's what your pre-fader meter does. It shows you the actual level of your signal. And this is very important when it comes to gain staging, because this is how you're going to be able to know if your signal is too hot or it's too quiet. All right, let me show you how to fix this. Let me show you how to gain stage properly in Logic Pro. There's so many ways, but I'm going to just show you what I think is the most easiest and quickest way to do it. Logic has a gain plugin. Most DAWs do, right? It's practically the same process because I do the same thing with Pro Tools as well when I'm mixing in Pro Tools. So I'm going to go down to utility, you go select gain and you select stereo because it's a stereo track, right? And then I'm going to just drop the gain to as much as I need it to be. Technically, there's a sweet spot, by the way. Most engineers, most industry professionals recommend you set your gain towards minus 18 dB, anywhere between minus 18 to minus, let me say 15 dB. That's where you have just enough headroom for everything to work just right. I'm going to drop this by minus 15. Let's see where we are hitting on the pre-fader meter. Right, as you can see, we are currently hitting minus 15. Technically, that's a good spot to be at. But if you want to keep it at minus 18, you could just drop this a little bit more to say, I don't know, let's see where this is going. So now we are at minus 17. Let me just point out that most of the time, the gain level here don't always match the gain level here though, just so you know that. But this time around, it's matching. But the main thing to remember is to adjust the gain here so you have enough headroom to work with. That's the first instance where you would need to gain stage. So now the second instance is when the signal is too quiet. Again, like I said, sweet spot is from minus 18 to like minus 15 dB. When your sound's at that level, then you have enough headroom for everything to work perfectly, and also you're getting enough input signal into your processing. Take this shaker loop, for example. You can see that it's really quiet. We're hitting about let's say minus 20 dBs at our highest point. So like I said, the sweet spot is between minus 18 dB to minus 15 dB. So you want to get the level of the shakeout to somewhere around that range, right? So I'm using the gain plugin to boost this signal to about 10 decibels. Now let's see where that took us to. Right. So we are currently at minus 11 decibels. Again, that's just my choice. You can decide to stay within the actual range, or you can decide to push just a little bit further. The most important thing is you have headroom to work with to avoid digital distortion. You do not want that. And that's the reason why you do a mix. And when you get to the mastering stage, it's just clipping, right? And you're thinking, but my mix was not very loud, but it is actually because you did not see the prefader meters. You did not know. So this is gain stage in a nutshell. And this is how you gain stage in Logic Pro.